Hello, welcome to another installment of Stigma-Free Learning Live with the Stigma-Free Society. My name is Samara Liberman. The gender pronouns that I use are she and her, and I am the host of this bi-weekly Facebook and YouTube live event hosted by the Stigma-Free Society called Stigma-Free Learning Live, where I explore some of the downloadable resources and lesson plans that are housed on our Student Mental Health Toolkit. So if you are new to this live event, welcome. As always, I will be talking you through a lesson plan today that is BC curriculum aligned and is designed to educate your class on topics related to mental health, mental wellness, reducing and eliminating stigma, and all things that are connected to the intersections of all of those concepts. So I'm so excited to have you here today to talk through another lesson. Before we get started, as always, I'm going to give you a bit of background on me and some context for the Stigma-Free Society so that you can have a bit more understanding of where I'm coming from and learn a bit more about the society. So the Stigma-Free Society is a decade-old Canadian registered charity that works to reduce and eliminate stigma of all kind, but specifically focuses on mental health. And we do this work through through education, through preventative measures, to reduce and eliminate stigma by educating folks about mental health, mental illness, and the ways that you can live a more stigma-free life. So I am a programs manager at the Stigma-Free Society. I also write all of the lesson plans and downloadable resources on the Student Mental Health Toolkit. And so for a bit of background on me and what brought me to the Stigma-Free Society and what makes me qualified to create all these documents. So I have a background in teaching. I have a master's in teaching. I also have a bachelor's degree in equity studies, and I have a professional development certification in early years mental health. So the work I do with Stigma-Free really aligns all of these ideas, and it brings a lot of my passions together, which is really exciting. So for today, I'm going to be walking you through another lesson and giving you some ways that you can implement this in your classroom, and talk you through some of the kind of the nitty-gritty of the lesson plan, and give you some context as to why I think this is an important topic to talk about with your students and all that fun stuff. So for the lesson plan today, we are going to be looking at the social media and our mental health lesson plan. And this lesson plan is designed for grades 8 to 12, and the curriculum areas that it focuses on is health education, applied design skills and technologies, and visual arts. So a lot of curriculum covered in this lesson plan. As always, before we get into the lesson, I want to encourage you to please leave comments, feedback, questions, anything that you might have going on in your brain that's connected to this live event or to the toolkit in general or the lesson plans in general. Like I always say, we design these lesson plans to be for you, the educators that use them, and we always want to be creating content that you're using and that you want to use and that you think is going to be helpful for you and your students. So if you have any ideas of curriculum areas that you want to see us cover or subjects that you want to see us cover, topics, anything like that, please leave a comment in the comment section of this video, and I will respond to your comments, I will answer your questions, and I will take your feedback into consideration when I am designing content for our toolkit. So to start with the lesson, I think it's very evident that social media has become a major feature in many of our everyday lives. For young people in particular, the relationship that they have with social media can be extremely complicated. I mean, it can be complicated for all of us, for adults too. I know I have a pretty complicated relationship with social media. So this lesson plan is really designed to interrogate that relationship, look at it from a different lens, and see how your students can kind of reframe or restructure the ways that they use social media to align with their values. So as it states in the lesson plan, social media can be used for a variety of reasons and in a variety of ways, from staying connected to activism to promoting ideas or local businesses. So when it's used for these reasons, social media can add a lot of value to our lives. However, it can also create feelings of inadequacy, feelings of shame, doubt, and many other feelings that can really negatively impact young people's mental health, but all of our mental health, really. So through the lesson, as I said, students will be able to explore their values in connection to their relationships and their usage of social media. And they will begin to see how their values can shape their social media usage in ways that can facilitate a positive relationship with these platforms. So the curriculum areas that are covered in this lesson, as I stated before, are health education, applied design, skills and technology, and visual arts. So lots of curriculum areas covered here. So the health and physical education curriculum, as well as the applied design, skills, and technology curriculum areas, connect really, really well to the concepts and the content of this lesson, as they both address students' mental health as well as their relationships with social media and technology. So specifically, the competency of identify the personal, social, and environmental impacts, including unintended negative consequences of the choices they make about technology use, ties really, really well into this lesson. So, because this competency really addresses the unintended negative consequences that technology use and social media use can have on them, on society, and our culture at large. So the visual arts curriculum connections also really connect well to this lesson and really tie into the active component of this lesson, which is a visual arts activity where the students are creating visual art as a creative expression of their values. So they will also be interrogating the social relationships, the culture, and visual art and society through visual art. So looking at ways that their social relationships, culture, and society are impacted by social media, and they will be doing this through art, which really is well connected to the visual arts curriculum in BC. So the video does a really great job. The video that you will have your students watch in this lesson, which is kind of the first thing that you'll do with them, does a really great job of exploring the complicated relationships youth can have with social media and focuses on certain stressors that can be brought about by this relationship. So the guiding questions that you will see that connect to this video that can kind of spark discussion and act as kind of a minds-on for the remainder of this lesson will get your students thinking about their interactions on and with social media and how these interactions might be impacting their mental health and their mental wellness. The questions will get your students thinking more deeply about their social media usage and how their time is consumed by social media platforms. So even beyond the actual use of the social media platforms, they will also be they'll be prompted to think about the time that they spent just thinking about social media. So it's not just about, the time that we're actually on these apps or on these platforms, but it's also about the time that we spend thinking about what we're going to post, thinking about what other people have posted, preparing these posts, thinking about how many likes we've gotten, what people have interacted with our social media posts. So it's not just about the time we actually spend on the apps, but a lot of our time that we think about these apps can also really impact our mental health and wellness. And I think, the time that we spend thinking about social media takes up a lot more time than we realize. So this is a really great way to get your students thinking about not only the time that they actually spend on social media, but the time that they spend thinking about it. So in the first activity, it's a group discussion activity for this lesson. The students will be asked to share their experiences with the stressors that were addressed in this video. So the stressors are connected to the concepts that the speaker in this video talks about, such as the highlight reels that we see on social media currency, and the idea of FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. So students will share their experiences with each other in small groups and then discuss their sharing in the larger class discussion. So as they are having this larger class discussion about their experiences with these concepts, you can track their musings and their conversation on the board as a way to anchor the conversation and for the rest of the activity, so they can kind of think about, what does the relationship they have with social media look like right now? What ways do these stressors impact their lives? What ways do the concepts of highlight reels and social media currency and FOMO, what ways do they impact their experiences? So using some of the key words and key concepts that are derived from the conversations that you've just had with your students, that are written down on the board, you can discuss with them how their relationships with social media and their experiences related to these concepts discussed earlier can impact their mental health and well-being. So when we're comparing our lives to the lives of others on social media, we're comparing our realities to other people's highlight reels. So this comparison can be extremely challenging and can make us lose perspective about what's real and what is put on for social media. So comparison can be extremely dangerous for young people, for their sense of self, for their body image, for the ways they interact with each other, the ways, and in so many other things that can negatively impact their mental health and wellness. So I think, like as it's very clearly stated in the video, social media oftentimes isn't exactly an accurate description of our day-to-day. Oftentimes people share the good things that are going on in their lives because, not a lot of us are really keen on sharing their low moments or the challenges that we face or our perceived failures or the things that don't go well in our lives. We want to be promoting, the things that are going really great, a new job, a relationship, all of these things that aren't necessarily indicative of exactly how we're feeling inside. I think there is a trend now that's not a word. There is a trend nowadays where people are sharing more of the complicated things that happen in our lives, and things that we might not have previously shared, like challenges we're facing, struggles with mental health, which is really, really great. And I think that's a really great shift in our social media use, so that we're not just sharing all the good things, but ultimately we do end up sharing more of the good than the challenges. So the main activity in this lesson gets your students to think about their core values. So the video they watched does a really great job of explaining how our values can help to shape our relationships with social media in positive ways by remaining firm in what we believe and by having this be the lens through which we interact with social media and with each other on social media. So pose these questions with your students to get them thinking about what their values are and what values they want to maintain when they are using social media to maintain a positive relationship with it and through their usage of it. So the questions you can ask are: what benefits do you notice about being on social media? What kinds of information do you like seeing on your social media? And what connections are formed and maintained through social media? So use the image in the video as an inspiration from their art pieces, but inform them that they can use whatever creative medium they want. The visual arts can take whatever shape they want it to take to represent their values. So the timestamp for the visual representation of the kind of values chart in the video is 4 minutes and 38 seconds, and you can project the image onto a screen so your students can get a sense of kind of what they're trying to emulate, what their art piece could look like, some of the values that are discussed in the video. So you can give them as much time as you see fit for this activity. It can take a long time if they really get into it, if they want to be really creative with it, if they have a lot of values that they want to share, if they want to take a unique perspective on the way that it looks. And they're welcome to be as creative as they like with this visual representation of their values and their value systems. So this is a really great way to get your students thinking about the ways that they relate to social media in a different way and to reframe their relationships with it. It will also get them to start digging deeper into what's really important to them and how they can use social media to maintain those values rather than having social media kind of usurp those values for them. So for the follow-up activity, you can invite students to share their art pieces in partners, in small groups, or kind of with the class in a bigger presentation way. You can also do kind of like an informal art gallery where you post their art pieces around the classroom and then they can walk around and look at each other's art pieces. That's a really great way to kind of showcase their art, and then they can kind of stand beside their art piece and explain it to people as they walk by. So for the follow-up activity to this visual art activity lesson, invite your students to share their art pieces. Oh, I already said that, sorry. And so you can get your students to ask each other some engaging questions about these art pieces, and some of the examples that you can get them to ask include, how do these values reflect your social media usage? What types of which of these values do you hope to bring more into your social media usage and relationships, and where do these values overlap with other areas of your life? So the final piece of this lesson is going to be a whole class discussion around the activity. So allow your students to reflect on the experiences they've had in creating these art pieces and to share their art pieces with the class as a whole if they would want to, or if that's not the thing that you did for the kind of follow-up activity. And then you can ask your students how these values, how they can use these values to better inform their social media usage. So you can explore with them how social media can really be used in a positive way to impact their lives, to impact the world at large through activism and creating awareness about social issues. And when their values in these areas align with their social media usage, they can create a positive change in the world. So I think this is a really great way to get your students thinking a bit differently about the ways they interact with social media. Social media is a platform for social engagement, a way to connect with each other. And when we look at it from that lens, it's really great and engaging and exciting and connecting. But it can also be really challenging. So, I think really try to drive the point home that when we're taking care of our mental health and mental well-being, sometimes social media can create negative experiences of mental health. So you could encourage them to take breaks from social media if they are feeling overwhelmed by what they're seeing, or they're feeling like, their values aren't really aligned with what's on their social media feeds anymore. You can encourage them to unfollow people that they feel like are being negative, putting negative things out into the world, or they're really starting to compare themselves to. Like, I think a lot of young people, they tend to follow people that, like celebrities that they really get excited about and really like their content, but when they start comparing their lives to the lives of those people who, live these lavish lifestyles, it can be really challenging. So you can also encourage them, if they're starting to notice that they're being negatively impacted by posts that certain people are sharing, to kind of unfollow them or put a pause on looking at their social media accounts to kind of take a break for their mental well-being as well. So that's it for today. Thank you so much again for tuning in. And as always, please leave a comment, share some feedback. I'm sorry I kind of mumbled through this lesson. It was a bit of a tongue twister saying social media usage so much, so I kind of tripped up on my words a lot. But I appreciate your patience as always. Thank you for engaging and watching, and I hope to see you next week for a lesson plan for grades 4 to 7. Thank you so much.